After 9 years of quiet devotion, Derek thought his marriage was solid, until the woman he loved weaponized intimacy and gave her affection to someone else. But instead of rage, Derek chose precision. And when the truth surfaced, his revenge wasn't loud. It was legal, devastating, and permanent. They say the strongest relationships are built on routine, shared habits, silent glances, knowing exactly who takes out the trash and who handles the grocery list. For 9 years, Derek thought he had that. He wasn't flashy or loud. He didn't believe in grand gestures or constant declarations of love. Instead, he believed in showing up every day, quietly, reliably. He was the guy who filled up her gas tank without being asked, who remembered her dad's birthday before she did, who made her favorite coffee exactly how she liked it, even when she didn't say a word. And for a long time, it felt like that was enough. He met Alina at a corporate leadership seminar in Denver, a 3-day snooze fest with icebreakers and flip charts. She was sharp, quick-witted, and had that ability to own a room without being loud. They hit it off fast. Within a year, they moved in together. 2 years later, they were married. At first, it felt like magic, but not the dramatic kind. It was better. They built something stable. Sunday routines, shared playlists, grocery runs that somehow felt like dates. Derek never craved drama. He liked order, predictability, peace. But peace has a way of hiding problems you don't want to see. Over time, Alina began changing. It started with work, late meetings, out-of-town trips, a promotion she was chasing with relentless focus. Derek supported it all. He figured it was a phase, stress, life. He picked up more of the slack without complaint. She was chasing her dreams. He was holding things down. What he didn't notice, at least not right away, was how far she was drifting. She stopped laughing at his dumb jokes. Meals became quiet. Texts turned into one-word replies. When he reached for her in bed, she rolled away. Not coldly, not with malice, just indifferent, like he was a minor inconvenience in her schedule. One Thursday night, he came home early with her favorite sushi, same order she always wanted after tough days. He expected a smile, maybe a quick hug. Instead, she didn't even look up from her phone. "Hey," he said, setting the bag on the counter. "Got you the tempura roll. Thought you might want it." She nodded, not really looking. "Thanks." He stood there for a moment, watching her scroll, waiting for eye contact that never came. Then he walked to the bedroom, changed, and laid on the bed, staring at the ceiling. That night, he reached for her again, gently brushing her arm. She flinched, not from surprise, but like she didn't want to be touched. They hadn't been intimate in over a month. He started counting the gaps, days without a real conversation, nights where she barely acknowledged him, moments where she treated him more like a roommate than a partner. Still, he didn't panic. He tried. He suggested a weekend getaway. She brushed him off. "I'm tired, Derek," she said one night while brushing her hair. "I know. I just miss us." Her response wasn't a sigh. It was a strike. "You're so clingy lately." He blinked. "Clingy?" She didn't stop there. "I'll be intimate with you only when it suits me, not when you want me to be." That line didn't come from frustration. It came from power, as if she thought she was drawing a boundary, reclaiming something righteous. But to Derek, it felt like she had just weaponized the one part of their relationship that once made them feel safe, connected, alive. He didn't argue, didn't yell. He simply smiled, walked out of the bedroom, and sat on the couch in the dark, listening to the fridge hum. For the first time in months, he felt something click inside. She thought he'd come back in a few hours, maybe apologize, maybe beg. She didn't realize he'd already left, emotionally, spiritually, not from the house, from her. That was the night he stopped waiting. Waiting for her to return, waiting for her to care, waiting for the woman he once loved to show back up and say it was all just burnout or temporary stress. In the weeks that followed, he gave her exactly what she claimed to want: distance. He was still polite, still helpful around the house, but the warmth was gone. No more touching, no more late-night check-ins, no more trying to fix what she clearly didn't see as broken. She noticed. "You've been quiet," she said one evening. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About what matters to me." She stared, unsure of what to say, then changed the subject. Pilates, or something about a coworker. Derek didn't really hear it, because in that moment he realized something deeper. She wasn't just pulling away. She was hiding something. And for the first time in his life, he was done pretending not to notice. It didn't happen all at once. The realization crept in slowly, like fog crawling over a road. Derek wasn't the kind of man who jumped to conclusions. But now that he had stopped waiting, he started watching. Not obsessively, just attentively. He noticed her phone was always face down now. Not once or twice, but every time. She'd tap it off mid-text when he entered the room. The password changed on her laptop, something they'd always shared freely before. Her new perfume didn't smell like anything Derek had ever picked out, and her taste in lingerie suddenly shifted from practical to strategic. But the biggest clue wasn't material. It was behavioral. Alina had started smiling again, just not at him. One night, Derek walked past the living room and caught her texting someone, curled up like she hadn't been in months. She didn't hear him. He watched the soft grin on her face, the kind of smile you can't fake, the kind that belongs to someone who feels desired. He had seen that smile before, years ago when it was for him. He didn't interrupt. He didn't ask. He walked back to the kitchen and made himself tea, calm, focused, detached, because now he didn't want comfort. He wanted clarity. That's when he started digging. It began with the bank statements, a $79 charge at a boutique hotel downtown. She claimed to be working late that night. A second Uber ride billed to her card at 1:10 a.m., again supposedly for a client meeting. Then came a receipt tucked into a grocery bag, carelessly folded. Lingerie, expensive, purchased in the middle of a workday. Still, Derek said nothing. Instead, he started a private cloud folder. Screenshots, dates, times, photos of receipts. If there was going to be a confrontation, it wouldn't be emotional. It would be undeniable. Then came the break he wasn't expecting. She left her iPad on the kitchen counter, unlocked. Derek didn't go looking. He just picked it up to check the news, like he always did, and found her messages still open. He saw the name first, Eli. Not a coworker, not a friend. Eli was the personal trainer she once described as too intense. The guy she said was only good for stretching routines. Turns out he was good for more than that. The messages weren't graphic. That would have been easier to stomach. Instead, they were worse, familiar, comfortable, intimate. He called her firecracker. She called him my little escape. Between workout tips and playlists, there were photos. Not explicit, but personal. A mirror selfie in workout gear. A coffee shop receipt with a heart drawn beside his name. Casual flirtation that left no doubt where this was heading or where it had already gone. Then Derek found the message that broke whatever part of him was still holding out hope. Can't wait for next Friday. Same room. Same room. That night, Alina came home like nothing had happened. She dropped her bag, mentioned something about dinner with Tess next week, then disappeared upstairs. Tess had moved to Arizona 3 months ago. That's when Derek made his move. Not toward her, but toward truth. He remembered Jenna, Eli's wife. They'd met briefly at a gym charity event years ago. She was quiet, kind, clearly grounded. He found her contact buried in an old group email. Sent a message. Hi, Jenna. I hope this isn't too forward. I believe our spouses are involved in something they haven't told us. I'm not looking for drama. I just want the truth. If you're open to talking, I'm here. Derek. She responded 6 hours later. Let's talk. Their conversation was quiet, heavy. Jenna confirmed what he suspected. Eli had been distant, evasive, and Alina's name had come up more than once. They swapped details, matched timelines, shared receipts. The affair wasn't speculation anymore. It was fact. They agreed not to confront them alone. That only gave liars room to twist the story. They needed to be united. They needed to be sure. So they built a plan. Derek told Alina he had a 3-day work trip in Denver. Jenna told Eli she had to help her mom move. She even posted a staged selfie to sell the story. That Friday, Derek watched from the upstairs window as Alina walked out the front door, dressed for someone else. Not for dinner with an old friend, for an evening she didn't want her husband to see. Jenna messaged 30 minutes later. Room 314. They're here. Derek met her outside the hotel. No yelling, no panic, just quiet purpose. Jenna had already checked into the room next door using points and a spare credit card under her maiden name. At the front desk, she claimed she'd forgotten her key. The young clerk didn't blink. They walked down the hallway together, neither speaking. When they reached the door, Jenna paused. She pulled out her phone and played a voice memo, Eli's voice from earlier that day. "Leaving the door cracked for you. Just come in." And it was. The door was open. Jenna looked at Derek. "You ready?" He nodded. Then they walked in. The hotel room door swung open without resistance. Inside, time froze. Alina was sitting on Eli's lap. Her head was tilted back in laughter, the kind of laughter Derek hadn't heard in over a year. Not from her, not in that way. She was wearing the lingerie he'd found the receipt for, shoved between grocery coupons, like it was just another errand. Eli's hands were around her waist, confident, familiar. He didn't look surprised. Not at first, neither did she. For a few seconds, all four of them stood in the same space, breathing the same air, caught in the same moment that made everything undeniable. Then Eli moved fast. His hands dropped like they'd touched a burner. Alina stood up abruptly, brushing at her clothes as if that could somehow erase what had just been seen. Her eyes darted from Derek to Jenna, wide, calculating. "Derek," she started, voice shaky. He held up a hand. "No, you don't get to talk right now." Eli opened his mouth to say something, maybe to deny, maybe to deflect, but Jenna stepped forward first. "I told you I'd find out," she said. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Neither Alina nor Eli responded. Derek turned to Alina and said just 4 words. "I hope it suited you." She flinched. Not because the words were loud, but because they were precise. Alina understood exactly what he meant, and what it cost to say it. There was no shouting, no threats, no breakdowns. Just the sound of realization landing like bricks. Derek didn't wait for excuses. He walked out. Not because he was overwhelmed, but because there was nothing left to say. The heartbreak had already happened. Quietly in the weeks and months she withdrew, deflected, and pretended. The hotel confrontation wasn't a collapse. It was confirmation. That night, Alina didn't call, didn't text. She didn't come home. She returned the next afternoon. Quiet steps, careful posture, like someone entering a courtroom without a defense. Derek was at the kitchen table with his laptop open, a coffee cooling beside him. She stood in the doorway for a moment, keys clutched too tightly, trying to appear composed. "Can we talk?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Just looked at her, this person who had once felt like home. "Sure," he said. She sat across from him. For a second, it looked like she might try tears, but they didn't come, so she pivoted. "It didn't mean anything," she said. "It just happened." He didn't reply. "I felt unseen," she added. "You were so quiet, distant. I didn't think you cared anymore." There it was, the flip, the attempt to make her betrayal a response to his behavior. Derek stayed calm. "I stopped talking because every time I did, you turned me into a problem you didn't want to solve." Her face tightened. "Do you love him?" he asked. "No," she said quickly. "God, no. It wasn't about that. I felt powerful. Wanted." That word stuck. Powerful. Derek stood, walked to the cabinet, and returned with a manila folder. He placed it in front of her. "What's this?" "My proposal." Inside was everything. Printouts of the hotel bills, transaction logs, screenshots of the texts, and a simple, clear divorce outline. No traps, no drama, just a path forward. She flipped through the pages slowly, her expression changing from defensive to stunned. "You want to end this?" "You ended it," he replied. "I'm just formalizing it." She stood suddenly, knocking her chair back. "This is insane. We can work through this. People come back from worse." "No," he said calmly. "They don't. Not when there's contempt." Her voice rose. "It was one mistake." He almost laughed, not from humor, but from finally understanding. "One mistake?" he echoed. "You didn't just cheat. You manipulated, withheld, and then handed over what you denied me, like it was a gift for someone who deserved it more." She opened her mouth to argue, but he cut her off. I'm not angry, Alina. I'm done. There's a difference. He turned toward the hallway, speaking over his shoulder. I'll give you time to review the documents. We can talk to the mediator next week. No lawyers, if you keep it clean. And if I don't, she snapped. He stopped and looked back at her. Then I'll bring everything to court. Financial records, timeline, the affair. I'm not bluffing. You know how thorough I am. Her jaw clenched. What about us? She asked, quieter now. What about the life we built? Derek looked around the house. The calendar on the wall hadn't been updated in months. The fridge magnets held up expired coupons. The dog bed was empty. He'd already arranged for the dog to stay with his brother. What life? He said simply. She didn't respond. Derek went upstairs, packed a small weekend bag, and headed for the door. Before he left, he stopped and turned back. You told me you'd be intimate with me when it suited you, he said. Well, it doesn't suit me anymore. Then he walked out, leaving her with the silence she once weaponized. Only now, it wasn't peace. It was consequence. Derek didn't sleep that night, not because he was heartbroken, but because his mind was calm in a way it hadn't been in years. He stayed at his brother's place. No interrogation, no awkward sympathy. Just a key on the counter, a cold beer, and silence that didn't feel like punishment. That kind of silence felt like control. Alina texted him the next day. We need to talk. A few hours later. I miss you. I'm sorry. Then came the shift. You're throwing away everything over one mistake? We were a team. Derek didn't reply. He didn't block her either. He wanted her to sit in the stillness. She had used silence to shut him out for months. Now it was her turn to listen to the absence. Within a week, he had a meeting scheduled with the mediator. He told Alina the time and place. She showed up looking like she was trying to play a part. Subtle makeup, softened voice, calculated remorse. But the act didn't land. Not anymore. She tried to stir old memories. Remember that road trip to Portland? She asked. You pulled off the highway just to watch the fog lift from the trees. You said it was the most peaceful you'd ever felt. I remember, Derek said. It was. But that was it. No nostalgia. No invitation to revisit something that had already been corrupted. She signed the initial paperwork, hesitated, tried to bargain. What about the condo? She asked. We designed that place together. You can keep it, Derek replied. And the joint account? I already removed my name. Everything's itemized in the file. She blinked, then her voice lowered. What about Max? She asked, referring to their dog. He's with me. You stopped walking him months ago. She looked down. The mediator, an older man with decades of experience, remarked how civil they were being. What he didn't understand was that Derek's civility wasn't forgiveness. It was finality. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He was making sure she couldn't hurt him again. Alina tried to delay finalizing the divorce, claimed she needed more time to process. Derek granted a 1-week extension. She came back asking for another. He refused. I'm not interested in dragging this out, he said. You had time to make choices. Now I'm making mine. That shook her more than yelling ever could. 2 months after the hotel confrontation, the paperwork was finalized. The divorce was granted without court intervention. Derek kept the car, some savings, and his peace. Alina kept the condo and everything inside it. He didn't want reminders. Meanwhile, Jenna, Eli's wife, moved fast. She filed for divorce with full custody of their son and a restraining order after Eli showed up uninvited at her office. She sent Derek a message after everything was finalized. Thanks for being the one person who didn't try to pretend it was all okay. I feel like I can breathe again. He replied simply. You deserve to. Rebuilding wasn't easy, but it wasn't as hard as Derek expected. The real grieving had already happened in the final years of his marriage, when Alina slowly turned into someone else, when each ignored conversation and cold shoulder chipped away at something that used to feel solid. By the time the paperwork was done, so was he. One afternoon, months later, he saw her at a pharmacy. She didn't notice him at first. When she did, she paused as if unsure whether to wave or walk away. She chose to speak. Hi, she said like they were old acquaintances. Hey, Derek replied, calm as ever. She looked thinner, worn out. That wasn't his concern anymore. "How have you been?" she asked. "Better," he said honestly. There was a pause. Then she asked the question he suspected she'd been rehearsing in her mind since the day he walked out. "Do you ever think about us?" Derek didn't hesitate. "Only when I'm grateful." She froze. He didn't wait for a follow-up. He didn't need to. That was the final moment. The real ending. Not the hotel, not the divorce. This. Her standing there, realizing he hadn't become bitter, hadn't been broken, hadn't collapsed under the weight of what she'd done. He had simply healed. And now she had to live with the version of him she could no longer reach. The final phase wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks, no revelations, no last-minute regrets. Just the quiet, steady rhythm of a life returning to itself. Derek moved into a smaller place on the edge of town. Nothing extravagant, just functional, peaceful. For the first time in years, he chose everything in it. The dishes, the couch, the silence. No compromises, no walking on eggshells. Just air he could breathe without second-guessing his place in it. He didn't date right away. Not because he was scared, but because he finally had space to figure out who he was outside of being a husband. He went hiking again, reconnected with old friends, started volunteering with a local mentorship program, something he'd always wanted to do but never had time for. It was the little things that reminded him how far he'd come. Making breakfast for himself and actually enjoying it. Waking up without the weight of someone else's coldness beside him. Going an entire day without explaining himself to anyone. He began to understand something important. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It sneaks up in small moments, like realizing the music you used to play together now just sounds like noise. Or walking past a restaurant and remembering a version of yourself who once thought that place held meaning. But grief isn't the same as longing. Derek wasn't mourning Alina. He was mourning the man he became to keep something broken alive. He didn't want her back. He didn't want revenge. He just wanted clarity. And now he had it. Alina sent a few more messages in the months that followed, mostly polite, occasionally nostalgic. She never asked to reconcile directly, but her words circled it. "You always brought stability to my chaos. I hope you're happy. I still think about you. Do you ever wonder if we gave up too soon?" He never responded, not because he hated her, but because she no longer had access to him. That was the real shift. She used to control the emotional temperature in their home, when they talked, when they connected, when they touched. Now she couldn't even spark a reply, and that silence wasn't punishment. It was protection. Meanwhile, Jenna thrived. She changed jobs, moved into a new apartment, and enrolled her son in a better school. They exchanged a few updates now and then, not flirtatious, not emotionally charged. Just mutual respect from two people who went through hell and refused to stay there. One evening, Jenna sent a short message. "He tried contacting me again. I ignored it. Feels good." Derek smiled when he read it. "Proud of you," he replied. They never became more than allies, and that was okay. Some people come into your life just to walk beside you when you need it most, and then move on, leaving you stronger. Time passed. The divorce faded into the background. So did the bitterness. Derek didn't bring up Alina in conversations, didn't tell stories about what happened. He didn't need to. His life spoke for itself. He learned to say no without guilt, to expect emotional availability from the people he let in, to stop over-explaining his boundaries. He stopped romanticizing potential and started honoring reality. One day, over lunch with a friend, someone asked him if he'd ever consider marriage again. "Maybe," he said, "but only if peace is part of the package." The friend laughed. "You sound like a man who knows what he wants." "I do," Derek said. "I just took too long to stop settling for less." Looking back, he didn't regret the marriage. He regretted how long he stayed after the love had left. But he also understood why he did. Hope. Hope had kept him there, convinced things might return to the way they were. But hope, when left unchecked, turns into denial. And denial keeps you in places you've already outgrown. He was done with that. He didn't need fireworks to move on. He didn't need her to apologize one more time. He just needed to remember the night he finally walked out, not with anger, but with resolve. "You told me you'd be intimate with me when it suited you. he had said. Well, it doesn't suit me anymore. And that was it. The real ending. Not a collapse, a choice. Not revenge, release.